Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Joe Palmer begins now.
Good evening, everyone. The true extent of Tasmania's summer bushfire crisis has been revealed today with the release of an investigation into the disaster. While the report thanked those on the ground who worked tirelessly to extinguish the blazes, it's highlighted issues with the response and our capacity to deal with more bushfire events in the future.
These are the unforgettable scenes of the devastating summer bushfires.
In terms of the areas burnt and in terms of the resourcing that was required, this was by far the biggest fire that's been experienced by the state.
An independent report released today examining the cause, response to and impact of blazes near the Central Highlands, Geeveston and Medina.
There was nearly 100 days of firefighting activity. It covered 210,000 hectares of Tasmania's landscape, about 3% of Tasmania's landscape.
It thanked those who extinguished the fires, saying personnel acted appropriately with the information at hand, but revealing crews left a fire near Medina in its initial stages, thinking it no longer posed a threat, but it went on to burn 34,000 hectares. Also saying a fire which threatened Geeveston wasn't responded to quickly enough.
Hindsight could give us, I suppose, the perspective that it wasn't responded to in time. My view is that all the fires were responded to in a reasonable priority order.
9 recommendations made, including the need for a purpose-built control centre and urgent training for more remote area firefighters.
These remote area teams need to be ready to go. The government needs to not just simply accept the recommendation, they need to actually get on with it and fund these teams.
Really, this is a question about the Liberals and their failure to resource remote area teams, to put the funding into the parks, to listen to the firefighters.
The government accepting all recommendations in principle, but unsure they can be implemented before the next fire season. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
A controversial activist group has staged protests across the state calling for stronger action on climate change. Extinction Rebellion says it's the first of many to come, with plans to cause more disruptions in the coming months, as they've done in other cities.
Hundreds of protesters lined the streets surrounding Parliament House as the Red Brigade marched in. The activists are members of Extinction Rebellion, an international climate movement wreaking havoc in cities worldwide.
Our step is to train people, and then in the future we will be engaging in civil disobedience.
The group held a die-in outside before its list of 3 demands was pinned to the door of Parliament House.
Governments tell the truth about the climate catastrophe and actually tell the community what the evidence is and what the science is.
In Launceston, members of the same group held a silent vigil at council chambers. The vigil was in support of Councillor Nick Daking's motion for a declaration of climate emergency, which was unanimously passed.
We're proposing that by 2025 that we can be 100% renewable and 100% neutrality with our carbon emissions.
The action follows major protests in Brisbane earlier this week, which saw more than 70 people arrested.
Planning to do a lot more actions in terms of actually kind of shutting down areas of the city.
The federal government has slammed the group's actions.
Some of these feral groups have been disrupting cities across the world, and in my view, if they're disrupting cities and they're breaking the law, then I hope the police are there to charge them.
Getting arrested is something we'd love to happen. We're more than willing to put up our freedom for the sake of this.
Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
The government is looking to more radical fixes for the state's housing crisis, including the purchase of a Hobart pub for accommodation. But another solution is drawing the ire of some residents who have suddenly found themselves neighbours to an imposing big black box.
Sitting boldly, this structure is part of the government's plan to tackle Tasmania's housing crisis.
Presenting alternatives that can be put in place rather quickly to assist those young people to stay at home and stay in the family environment is a fantastic thing.
The backyard unit is one of 22 installed across the state and are designed for young people to stay near family to help them learn to live independently.
At the moment, with people sleeping rough, we have to look at alternatives that we wouldn't have considered in the past.
But as radical solutions such as this are rushed out, it's frustrating residents who suddenly have this bold structure neighbouring their home.
It's not a big house. I just can't really believe that you would be allowed to put something like that there.
It was craned here on Tuesday in a move Rachel says lacked consultation other than receiving a letter saying the road would be closed.
I was a little bit angry and then was trying to work out just how this had happened.
The Kingborough Mayor says the issue is out of Council's control as the government sets the rules.
Our job is just to administer the planning scheme and assess applications against that.
Rachel took to social media, people commenting that they're too concerned that this structure could be a precedent for other areas across the state.
The general consensus is people are pretty angry that something like this can just appear.
This situation unfolding as the government reveals it's purchased popular North Hobart hotel The Waratah to transform it into supported housing. Another bold move as authorities grapple with the housing crisis. Louise Hedger, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian teachers are signing on to a new wages offer. It ends months of strikes and industrial action at schools across Tasmania. The AEU confirming its members have voted to accept the new short-term deal, but the priority now is for a longer-term solution.
This is about showing our teachers respect, giving them recognition for the work they do, and by giving them the respect, we're also able to retain those teachers.
The government has set a deadline of November negotiations, but the union is hoping an agreement will be reached sooner. There are growing calls for the federal government to spend more on community legal centres amid soaring demand. At least 8 people are turned away each day, and lawyers are warning the courts are facing bigger backlogs and more delays.
Nikki Snare can see the bright side in the face of a crushing workload.
It's always busy. We never have to worry about, advertising for clients.
But the silver lining ends there. More than 200 people have sought help from the legal centre in the past month. The Launceston Centre, like others in the state, suffered major funding cuts in 2015. Since then, they've seen more than 6,000 clients and made 10,000 referrals. But another 3,500 people have been turned away.
We're at a tipping point here in Tasmania in respect of a crisis in legal aid funding. In 2014-2015, legal aid funding was reduced by 7.5%.
The community legal centres save money for the system. There's no doubt about it. By being out there, helping people, giving them assistance, they prevent people falling into conflict with the law.
Finding funding is a battle every year for the centres, and 2019 hasn't been lucky for Launceston.
As of the 19th of August, we'll be from 3 full-time solicitors down to 2.2.
The state government says it's working with the Commonwealth to ensure Tasmanians, especially those disadvantaged, have access to legal services. Meanwhile, Liberal Bass MP Bridget Archer says she's raised the issues in Launceston directly with Federal Attorney General Christian Porter. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
A low-pressure system is set to bring cold and wild conditions to the state. The Bureau of Meteorology describing it as a dynamic weather situation, bringing rain, snow and strong winds.
The low-pressure system is a bit erratic. It can move a little bit and change the warnings significantly just by moving a slight bit. So especially the rainfall amounts may be higher than what we're quoting.
Authorities advising people to monitor warnings and be aware conditions can change.
And the pressure is on in the lead up to this weekend's netball semi-finals, with the league's top 3 sides finishing equal first on points. The excitement is building, with all teams confident of their chances of coming out on top.
So the girls are actually reasonably confident. We've got nothing to lose, and we've only lost by 1 goal to the 2 of the top 3 teams, so we're ready to go.
And we feel like we've probably been building to the type of netball that we want to play, and the last couple of games we feel like we've got a lot of momentum, so hopefully we can use that coming into Saturday's game.
The action kicks off at the Kingborough Sports Centre on Saturday. Lauderdale's coach says the group is refocused after a shock loss to Clarence last week. He says the players had a brutally honest session on Monday and are ready to face North Launceston this week in the match of the round.
A reality check for Lauderdale.
The ladder leaders suffered their second defeat in 3 games against wood and spoon contenders Clarence last week. Their coach says their players had a good hard look at themselves on Monday.
The boys responded really well. We've had a pretty honest session on Monday and just got back onto the job for this week on Tuesday.
They face North Launceston at home on Saturday, who's in second place with a game in hand and a better percentage. With heavy rain predicted, Lauderdale is predicting a slog, with North unable to play its attacking style.
With 20 mils of rain forecast on the weekend, they probably might change that up, I reckon. So I think it's going to be a wet, old wintry day.
Meanwhile, Clarence's coach has challenged his players to back it up against Launceston.
We can talk about it as much as we want, but it's up to the individual and the leaders in the group to make sure we get a consistent effort this week.
After a strong purple patch last month, Launceston is coming off 2 losses in a row.
And we know Clarence are full of confidence at the moment. Their last 3 weeks have been pretty strong, so we need to be on our game from the get-go.
And with just 2 games left before the finals, the coach says they need to regain momentum.
We need to get back just to what we know and have a positive result on the weekend.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
The SFL is getting a star attraction this weekend, with Barry Hall confirming another appearance for Signet at this weekend's clash with Sorrel. He lined up for the side 2 weeks ago for what was expected to be a once-off, but the 42-year-old says he had a great time.
Good evening. 9 degrees today in Hobart. Launceston had a top of 8. Burnie hit 10 degrees with 7 in Devonport. King Island had the state's top today of 12 degrees, 11 for Smithton and Scotts Peak, 10 degrees at Wynyard and Grove, 9 for St Helens and Strawn, 8 the top at Campania and Ouse, with 7 degrees for Cressy, Low Head and Scottsdale. Looking onto the charts, there's a mid to high level cloud band there off the east coast and near King Island, low cloud over the remainder. Southern parts of WA, South Australia and Victoria appear covered by cloud also, with bright thunderstorm activity visible in the Bight, but mostly cloud-free for the rest of the country. Tomorrow, a cold front extends from a deep low southeast of Tasmania towards Sydney and South Australia, while a high develops over southwest WA, extending a ridge through western and northern regions. South to southwesterly winds 20 to 30 knots, developing during the morning, reaching up to 35 in the northwest early on and then in the lower east and the south later, with seas between 2 and 4 metres. A few warnings. There's a gale warning for eastern and southern coastal waters, a strong wind warning for all remaining coastal waters, including the southeast inshore waters, and a small craft wind alert for the southwest lakes. There's also a road weather alert for ice on susceptible roads through the central parts affecting the north and the east, and also a warning to sheep graziers through the east, the southeast and the King Island area. So good luck to you. Tomorrow, Hobart, Huonville and Campania, 10 degrees and showers increasing. Possible showers through the northeast, 13 for Launceston, Devonport and Georgetown. 12 with a shower or 2 in Burnie and Wynyard, 10 for Strawn, with 13 degrees the top for St Helens, 12 for Swansea and 10 degrees at Port Arthur. Showers throughout the state on Saturday, less likely throughout the north. Similar conditions expected again on Sunday, with showers about the west and the far south on Monday, but pretty fine conditions elsewhere. Taking a look around Australia now at your capital cities, 19 in Perth and Sydney, 12 for Adelaide, showers and 11 in Melbourne, 8 to the top for Canberra, with a sunny 25 in Brisbane. At the moment, it's 6 degrees and a few clouds in Hobart, Launceston 5 degrees and 5 also with a few clouds in Devonport. Joe, another hot tip from our friends at Aurora. As it cools off again, only heat the rooms you are using. Just do what I do and go and stay warm at your sister's house, I say. You might get a free dinner. Rach, I'm on the way.
For Rachel, this is becoming a bit of a habit, Sam. All right, thank you very much. And that's all from the team for now. Thanks so much for your company. We'll see you a little later. Bye-bye.